As we start, may I request everybody to turn on the camera. We'll just quickly take a group picture. Jitendra, you can continue.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to all of you to the most interesting meeting of Rotary Bangalore Junction. Since it's an online meeting, let me quickly lay down the ground rules. Request everybody to kindly switch on your camera so that we can see your lovely faces. And please avoid cross talks and please keep your mobile either on switch off or silent mode. And keep yourself muted. And in case you want to speak, you can always unmute yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, let's look forward for a wonderful meeting. And with that, I'll hand over the charge to our president, Rotarian Ajay Bhawala. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Joint Secretary, Rotarian Jitendra Shetty. Meeting call to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this unique online meeting today. I welcome all the guests who have logged in for the meeting today. The topic itself is so interesting, and we have with us many of our past presidents. Welcome, sirs, and welcome guests. The presence of most of these members is a testimony of their commitment and dedication. Really appreciate. Friends, I would like to thank our Director Club Service, Rotarian Manish Bojawar, who is always inviting experts to our weekly meetings as guest speakers. The topics are based on current affairs, which are very important for our members. And these sessions provide good education, information, and help our members be updated with necessary information on topics relevant. On this note, as we all know that cryptos is the new fab, talking subject in almost all the circles that we are in, and definitely the future of digital currencies. With us this evening, we have an expert on the subject, and it is my honor to welcome Mr. Gursimran Jit Oberoi for our weekly meeting today. Welcome, Mr. Oberoi, and we are glad you are here with us this evening. I now invite our club secretary, Rotarian Siddharth Hamirvasya, for the secretary's report.
Thank you, President. So yet another eventful week has passed by. Let me just quickly recap what we did. Good evening, Rotarians and ANET's guests and our guest speaker today. We started the week on 29th Saturday with Project Chairman, Past President Rotarian MP Krishnan, Past President Rotarian Vijay Saraf, President-elect Rotarian Neetu Saraf, Rotarian Ruby Chaudhary, Uma and me visiting the Malur Gaushala to assess the needs of the shed over there. They have way too many cows and bulls, and compared to that, the number of sheds are pretty less. So we felt that, yes, the cattle need shelter. We've asked them to send a plan drawing and also quotations from vendors, and we will take up the project from there. On 30th Sunday, I'm very happy to share that Rotary Club of Bangalore Junction has upgraded the urban public health center at Vasant Nagar with necessary equipment and material. And all this material actually helped them not only upgrade their public health center, but also create an isolation room for COVID patients. It was inaugurated by our District Governor-elect Rotarian Jitendra Aneja-ji. And over there, DG spoke about how PHC staff have worked fearlessly round the clock to help public. And he also appreciated this new initiative. This project was a success due to the untiring efforts of Chairman, Past President Rotarian Vijay Saraf. Now coming to the celebrations during the week, the special days of our members. Today, Rotarian Sailesh Agarwal and Ritu Musaddi celebrate their anniversary. Wish you guys a very happy anniversary. On the 6th of February, Rotarian Bimal Lohia will celebrate his birthday. And this is a milestone birthday. He will be turning 50. Rotarian Sunil Dwivedi and Shalini Dwivedi celebrate their anniversary on the same day, 6th of February. And on the same day, also Rotarian Vikas Jajodia and Neelam Jajodia will be celebrating their anniversary. Moving on 8th of February, and Priya Khanna celebrates her birthday. And on the same day, Rotarian Sanjay Jajodia also celebrates his birthday. Rotarians Sanjay Agarwal and Rekha Agarwal will be celebrating their anniversary also on 8th of February. Our new member, Rotarian Ashish Shumta, celebrates his birthday on the 9th. And on the same day, Rotarian Bimal Goyanka and Ann Sunita, as well as Rotarian Manish Agrawal and Ann Mansi, will be celebrating their anniversaries. Wish all of you many happy returns of the special days. And with this, over to President. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth, and birthday and anniversary wishes to the Rotarians and the Anns. Ladies and gentlemen, a very quick update on our upcoming events and projects. I request all the members to pay attention and make note of the dates. Please block your dates for our exciting Charter Night celebrations. Yes, it's proposed on the 5th of March, which happens to be a Saturday, and the details of this Charter Night will be shared very soon. Please block your dates once again for the prestigious awards night, where we will be recognizing and awarding persons who have contributed immensely in areas of community service, vocational service, youth service, and international service. It is proposed for the Saturday, the 9th of April, 2022. Yet again, please block your dates for the Governor's official visit, the GOV, which is on Saturday, the 7th of May. So these are three big events, and on these dates, I request all the members to block the dates, as we would want all the members attending the respective events. And friends, a lot is happening in all the avenues of service. The details will be shared shortly: community service, vocational service, club service, and international and youth. All the directors have been working on a couple of projects, and the details will be shared shortly. May I now invite our Director, Youth Services, Rotarian Amrish Kothari, to introduce our guest speaker for the day. Over to Amrish.
Thank you, President. Well, good evening, Rotarians, guests, and Senates. Today, we are here to listen to this talk on the mysterious world of cryptos. Gursimran Jit Oberoi is a published author in the blockchain space. His book, Internet of Transactions, published in 2017, is available on Amazon. BTech by education, Gursimran has a total of 10 years of experience as a fund manager in equities and commodities with a value-based framework of research, and 4 years of experience decoding and investing in digital assets. He has successfully managed esoteric fund strategies in commodities and equities from 2011 to 2015. And worked with multiple fintech organizations driving core functions for them. IND Wealth was his last stint as Associate Vice President, where he managed investment strategies for family offices. In his current stint, he is hoping to educate and drive investments into the digital asset space through educational webinars and managing mandates for family offices in this sector through his new firm, Go North Capital. This topic is of great importance and great interest to all of us. And our speaker has great depth of experience in this field as well. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shri Gursimran Jit Oberoi, and over to you, sir.
May I just coming? See, as a security measure, before the speaker starts addressing, I would like to mute everybody, and only the co-hosts can unmute themselves, and we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. Mr. Oberoi, the floor is all yours. Welcome, and we're glad you're with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good evening, all the Rotarians. Today, I think all of us have probably, especially in my own personal journey, I think I am now actually seeing the interest build up in a space that I've been closely following for the last couple of years. And it's great to see and great to actually have people reach out to the people in this industry that we are trying to grow and coming up with questions and basically clarifying their doubts about various problems that they may have heard of, read about, and a lot of things which are put in the media out there, which might or might not be relevant in today's time to a certain extent. So my job through this webinar is to not actually cover the major technical points of Bitcoin and blockchain, but it's to give you a brief overview of how you should think about an asset class, particularly the blockchain based asset class, right? How do I look at investing in this space, right? I'll try and share my own personal experiences with you all in terms of how did I position my portfolio. Because if any one of you was tracking the digital asset space, we had a huge bear run starting from Jan of 2018 to probably the end of 2019. And all of us in this space have come to realize one thing, that when we are investing in disruptive technologies, volatility is part of the game. It's a feature, it's not a bug, right? So something which drives a normal investor away is volatility. But I'll also include one slide which helps me take the final point home to a family office, that why this volatility can be an opportunity and how it should be positioned in somebody's portfolio if they are trying to come up with a framework of how to invest in a crypto asset, right? So if somebody should start with 20,000 or should they start with a 20 lakh, it is totally subjective and it's totally up to their investment strategy. So I'll try and cover a bit of the technology part and a little bit of the investing part. But I would much rather say that in a short format session, such as a 1 hour, like we have this, if there is anything left behind, I would more than welcome to answer any queries. I have an open timetable for sessions like these. And of course, you can anyways reach out to me anytime point afterwards to get any clarifications when you're getting started with the asset class, right? I'm more than happy to onboard new people to this ecosystem. And this is one of the things that I love about, getting into a space early, that you get to give your viewpoint, what you've learned over the last few years, you get to tell them to people so that their journey is not as, choppy as yours was. So, on that note, I'll just start my presentation. I'll try and move a bit fast, but if anyone feels during the middle that they need to pause me a bit and take me, take time to revise a point, I'll be more than happy to make that point again. Right?
So can I just interrupt once? I think we are getting a lot of beeps from your phone. If you would just keep that a little away, it would be less disturbing.
Okay, let me just, it's actually on airplane mode. I don't know. Is it any better now?
Yeah. I mean, right now there are no beeps. If we
okay,
don't.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, still some beep is coming, but that's okay.
Okay, I hope everyone can see the presentation. Okay, perfect. And is there any background noise still there? Because I believe my room is totally silent. I don't know where the interference would be coming from now.
Okay. Maybe it's at my end. I'm not sure. That's okay. We can proceed.
How about now?
Yeah, it's good at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. Just give me a moment, please. Okay, so this is just a basic overview of the major news that have happened in the last 6 months regarding what has happened in the blockchain space. And what we've seen is an increasingly comfortable stance towards cryptos, right? Something which was totally negative during the 2018-2019 cycle. We saw the government come up various times and explain to people that we are basically in talks with the industry experts, the Internet and Mobile Association and the likes, to understand what the basic tech is and does there actually need to be a token or a blockchain based crypto to actually exist in order for this ecosystem to thrive. That is one of the most important points or one of the most basic points one needs to wrap their head around if they need to invest in the space. That why does a certain blockchain need their own particular token or their own particular crypto in order to survive and thrive, right? And basically that is an ongoing conversation that the industry experts are having with the government. And what we've seen is we've seen a considerable flexibility from the government. We have seen a lot of investment interest in the space, not only outside of India, but quite as of recently inside of India as well, where you have seen several crypto exchanges being funded to the tunes of hundreds and millions of dollars. So things are basically starting to look up in terms of how the regulatory framework has become quite more flexible. So basically what we would want to understand is how did the blockchain immediately, how did something like Bitcoin come up in 2009, right? And this was right after the financial crash. This was basically a concept paper written by a person or a group of people named Satoshi Nakamoto, right? And this group of people were not just run-of-the-mill engineers. These were the best minds in the internet space. These were the best minds in the cryptography space, right? And they were basically concerned with one simple thing. What happens if the government can print unlimited amounts of money without any consideration for the 99% of people in the country? How do we get our hands on a tradable asset which can smoothly function across the globe and which is free from any intervention from Fed, the IMF, or the large organizations alike? The idea being that you can own your land, right? You can own your gold, but all of these things have certain levels of limitation in terms of transfer of asset between individuals, between individual and governments. And of course, if you're trying to move to a new country, these are all issues which are not easy to solve, right? And each country in itself has a different set of macro problems, right? A US is more concerned with inflation, but it's a way of life in Venezuela, right? Underwriting of your assets, the government forces you to hold a depreciating currency, right? And all these things are, which we may not consider important, but are very relevant to some other economies, right? So we have an IMF which is trying to control how the dollar flows through the economy, right? We have the US Fed, whose rate cuts or rate hikes decide the future of what happens in the Indian equity space. This is all because everything is linked to the US dollar. The capital flows, the richest people in the world, they like using the US dollar. And that dependence also creates a central point of failure, where the mismanagement from the government can actually lead to your assets devaluing or your countries going into massive large scale writing, etc. I'm talking one end of the extreme to the other, but somewhere about social unrest also is somewhere where this whole thing comes into play. So as a historian of blockchain, I would like to say that all of this experiment started right from the 80s, right? When the cryptography and the first computer-based systems were invented, cryptography in its oldest form was something like कि आप एक letter लिखते हो, but you replace every letter with a letter three letters down, and then the other person who reads it needs to know the code in order to decode it. That is the basic level of cryptography. It was used as a tool of communication in warring nations 5,000, 10,000 years ago. The Egyptians used it, the Romans used it, right? That is the basic of cryptography, that it secures your communication, right? And then you had the advent of internet, which basically sped up that communication. So blockchain, which was the Bitcoin in its blockchain form, which is relevant and which is prevalent today, was work of an experiment which ran multiple iterations and multiple thought papers across the last 30, 40 years. And that is what I've mentioned here, that there were ideas like blinded cash, B-money. So blinded cash basically was the first cash where you could send electronic cash from one person to another without opening up the source, without disclosing who was the source of the money transfer, right? So it had its own problems, that if somebody has that data stored in their system, at one point of time, even that encrypted system needs to store that information, and that information was in one single PC or one single server at some person's home. So you are still exposed, right? Your central risk of failure is still one person or one organization if the experiment took off. Similar, there were certain advents with B-money where you could transfer it across border, right? But there were some other issues with adoption, right? So they have their own each own history of how they tried and how they failed. And 2009 was finally the iteration which basically worked, right? It was an iteration which came into existence simply because they unlocked the security feature along with the synonymity feature, where nobody could identify which person owned the Bitcoin, but everybody knew that what certain wallet had the amount of Bitcoin. So if I am sending my Bitcoin to you, you receive your Bitcoin and I send my Bitcoin, the balances should subtract, right? The double spend problem was the problem which needed to be solved. That how do I ensure, without trusting a bank, without trusting another person, without trusting another computing machine, that this transaction is legitimate? Why can't I send one Bitcoin to you and one Bitcoin to the other and tell them that I have two Bitcoin? That was one double spend problem, which also the blockchain technology solved. So the idea was that now you come to the basic definition of blockchain, that what exactly was a blockchain? So blockchain was nothing but an open ledger. Everybody has a khata book. Everybody who is confirming the khata book does not know the individual owner of the account, right? So if you have a set of 100 transactions which have happened on the blockchain, your job is just to determine whether the +1 from there has translated into a -1 in another wallet, right? And so on and so forth. And if there are 10 participants or 50 participants like us who are verifying this ledger, 51% of us have to minimum confirm that this transaction has taken place or settled at both ends, without all of us knowing who sent the transaction to whom, right? The reward for this doing this transaction was that you would get a Bitcoin at the end of confirming the transaction, right? So you are now technically a person who is maintaining the system and getting paid for keeping that ledger accurate. Now, if you try and manipulate the ledger, there is a cost to it, right? You need to take control of 51% of parties. You need to take control of the energy resources those parties are using. And in the initial stages, when Bitcoin was even under $1, it has faced numerous such attacks and it has come out on top every time. So right now, if you have to change one transaction, one set of transfers within the transaction, the cost of pulling out that hack is now computed to be more than $7 billion. So since there are no 7 billion transaction dollars happening on a blockchain in a single block, that is for changing on one 10-second transaction module. So basically blockchain may every 10 seconds, the number of transactions are bashed and they are published. Another 10 seconds bashed, published. When this publishing happens, you need to confirm and you earn Bitcoin. Every 10-second attack would need $7 billion. Since the settlement on chain in those 10 seconds, there is very low probability that more than $7 billion of value would be transferred across that network. The attack becomes unviable, right? So now your network is more secure. Now you have more than 250 million servers worldwide in different locations, across geographies, across countries, across nations, which host these servers. 6 to 7 months ago, China decided they didn't want people to be mining Bitcoin. The mining operations moved elsewhere. We are back to the same security hash power that there was just 6 months ago, even with China banning. That is the beauty of a network being decentralized. So decentralized as a concept is that you do not need to know the location of the person verifying the ledger also, right? So now you have a system where you can transfer value in sub 10 seconds or sub under a minute. You can send value from $10 to 100 million or $1 billion, right? The cost of transacting on that network or the fee that you're paying to the miners is very low. It's in dollars, it's in cent. Right now, you remit, if any of you are investing in US stocks, you know the cost of remittance when you're remitting from a normal bank charter, right? You are paying 2.5-3% upfront, and then when you bring that money back, you're paying another 2.5%. That is a 5% slippage cost on your total transaction. With Bitcoin, if you're sending $10 or you're sending $100 million, your cost is $3, $7, $10, depending on network congestion. So if the network congestion is low, you'll even be able to send transactions to your friend in Bahamas or America for under 50 cents. And that is really one of the use cases which makes it super attractive. So there are multiple use cases for Bitcoin, and every jurisdiction has some interest in basically adopting that use case. So if I am a country which does a lot of remittance, or if I'm basically a nation which is a travel or tourism based nation, if I'm able to reduce the remittance costs, that is a value add that I can give to the people coming into the country, right? Similarly, for a Venezuela, I would much rather have a hard asset which is limited in supply. We'll know that there only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It's as per the algorithm, the emission rate at which the network rewards basically has figured out that till 2140, आज से भी 120 साल बाद तक थोड़ा थोड़ा बिटकॉइन जो है एग्जिस्टेंस में आता रहेगा on every block that is mined. But that number is constantly reducing by half every 4 years. So by the end of 2140, the last 21 millionth Bitcoin will be mined. There will be no new Bitcoin which will ever enter the system or be created by the algorithm. And you can't even change that even with a 51% majority on chain. So basically, these are rules which are set, which apply to different people in different ways, which tries to give Bitcoin a value of scarcity, a value of an asset which can be transferred at super high speed at very cheap costs, right? And then you get basically an asset which you are now relating to a currency also, which I think is a misnomer. I think when we say cryptocurrencies, that is also one point that I want to make, that cryptocurrency is not a currency trying to compete with an INR or a USD. Cryptocurrency is the inbuilt currency the network needs to operate. Hence the term cryptocurrency. It's not meant to replace INR. It's not meant to replace US dollar. It is the reward that the miners get. And how will you reward the miners? An algorithm can't reward in dollars, right? It doesn't know dollars. It's ones and zeros. So the Bitcoin is everything that it knows, and every network incentive is denominated in Bitcoin. Similarly, for other cryptocurrencies, for Ethereum, the reward is Ethereum, right? For something like a Dogecoin or a Shiba Inu, if you are mining those things, the reward is Dogecoin. So the currency of the network is not necessarily something which is trying to take over India or take over America or take over China. It's just a misnomer. It's something which means that the network itself transact or uses it as a unit of transaction within that network. So hence the term cryptocurrency. That is one major thing that people miss when they are making the argument that it's a currency and it's trying to make the INR basically irrelevant, which I'm sure will not be the case, right? Also, what I wanted to say was securing these servers, which basically verify these transactions. These are basically called miners. जो आप सुनते हैं कि Bitcoin mine भी होता है, you're doing nothing. You're downloading the ledger every 10 seconds. You're verifying whether the transaction happened correctly, and then the server solves an algorithm. If it gets a reward, it gets a reward, and it's probabilistic, and everybody running the servers for a long enough time gets the same pro rata rewards as per the number of servers you are running. So the idea is that this basic activity not only does verify the open ledger, but it also keeps the network secure. So more the number of servers, the more secure your network is, and more is the comfort level of an investor or a person transacting in this particular network, that okay, my value will be transferred without a fear of a hack on the network, or an attack by the network miners. This is called proof of stake, proof of work. So basically the machines are doing the work and they are getting paid. जैसे आप माइंस के अंदर अगर सोना खदान में आप चिजल करते रहोगे तो किसी को ज्यादा मिलेगा, किसी को कम मिलेगा, बट ओवरऑल उस माइन के अंदर उतना ही गोल्ड है, राइट? सो एज अ माइनर योर जॉब इज टू डिग, योर जॉब इज टू अर्न. तो वैसे ही ये प्रूफ ऑफ वर्क का माइनिंग होता है. Ethereum as a currency, on the other hand, has came up with another concept called proof of stake. So if you own Ethereum, you can just tell the network that, okay, now pass on these rewards, not basis the number of servers that I have, because I don't want to own servers, but on the percentage amount of supply that I own of Ethereum. So any transaction happening on the Ethereum network, when they are confirmed and people pay fee to confirm those transactions, if you own 1% of the network, 1% of those fee will come to you. That is called proof of stake mining, right? That also secures the network. You are also basically securing the network, but not by using servers, but by simply showing that you own X% of the network, and this is how you choose to validate or check mark this transaction, whether it's okay or not okay, right? So this is called proof of stake. It's said to be more eco-friendly than proof of work, जो कि एक मेजर आर्गुमेंट बिटकॉइन के लिए ये भी आ रहा है कि भाई ये ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो जाएगा, इससे बहुत सारे माइंस एंड बहुत सारे रेयर मिनरल्स जो है माइन करने पड़ रहे हैं हमें इस नेटवर्क को सिक्योर करने के लिए. देखा जाए तो द ओवर द होल ईयर जितना बिटकॉइन माइनिंग एनर्जी यूज करता है उससे ज्यादा अपने 7 दिन के क्रिसमस लाइट्स पर अमेरिका वो कर देता है. सो दीज आर ऑल basically the arguments which are made by the media or people in the media, which I believe are blown out of proportion but are still relevant as a point of discussion that you should keep at the back of your mind, right? So basically blockchain के बारे में इससे ज्यादा डीप भी हम जा सकते हैं, but I believe that is a basic primer of what a blockchain looks like, that it's a ledger where you confirm transactions, you earn for confirming those transactions. In turn, you are also making the network strong and secure, right? Now, let's get to the part where how do these, and I personally don't call them cryptocurrencies, I prefer to call them digital assets, right? So what as an investor, what are digital assets? What do they represent? What do these tokens represent, right? Guys have to give me a moment. I just okay, all set. So basically what these other tokens apart from Bitcoin represent are basically the network effects of these platforms. Imagine a Facebook where every Facebook user had a token issued for interacting on the Facebook network every time, right? And when Facebook was at 10 million users, 20 million users, 50 million users, right? And you were part of the network and you would have network coins, it would be in your incentive to make that network more viral, right? You would be using the network more, you would be using those coins, but simultaneously, since more users are joining and more users are having to interact with the network, the price of the network token would go up automatically. क्योंकि आपने अगर 5 रुपए खर्च किए नेटवर्क पे इंटरैक्ट करने के लिए और 10 लोग नए आकर उन्होंने 10-10 रुपए का वो टोकन खरीदा, तो you sold worth 5 but the demand is for 50, right? So on and so forth, and it multiplies. So whenever we are talking about digital assets, we are trying to create business models which have minimal amount of middlemen, right? It's a global user base जिसको आप access कर सकते हो on the blockchain. All of these people are willing to experiment on the web with you, and they're trying to grow these networks into meaningful use cases, right? And their reward for taking this protocol viral is that the value of the token itself rises along with it, right? So as I've written here, Owning a digital asset means owning part of a protocol or a software which earns revenue when users transact on it. So more users equal to more adoption equal to more revenue and increase in the value of your digital token, right? And as a simple comparison, what we have observed is that the internet grew for the first 10 years and it had 100 million users. Decentralized blockchains now have 240 million users in the same time, right? And the blockchain ecosystem is growing 30% faster than the internet during the same period. One reason is because internet से पहले कुछ नहीं था. हमारे मॉडेम्स कैसे होते थे, जिनमें से फनी आवाजें निकलती थी और हम वेट करते थे कि कोई अगर हम ईमेल भेज रहे हैं तो वेबसाइट खुल रही है गोल गोल घुमा के. आज इंटरनेट इज वेरी डिफरेंट. वी आर टॉकिंग 5G, वी आर टॉकिंग 100 Gbps की स्पीड्स, and we are even going for faster rates of transfer. So this has helped in the blockchain economy also cracking the user base much faster than previous innovations, right? So imagine if Facebook took, around 13 to 14 years to reach to a 1 to 2 billion user base. We have around the same period, we are ahead of the curve, and we are basically reaching a lot more people, and we are having a lot more people interact with these digital networks to do meaningful transactions. And I'll come up with examples of those meaningful transactions, right? Now, when I talk about global investment opportunity, I am talking that एक जगह पर आपके पास एक पेटीएम जैसी इनोवेशन है जिसमें आप 10 साल तक इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर पाए, although you've been using it for 10 years. On the other hand, you have an opportunity to invest in a protocol or basically buy coins into a network where if this network goes from 10,000 users to probably 10 million or 100 million users, you are investing in the journey of that, the major growth expansion phase of the company. All of you must have also attended the session by Ashish sir, and he's a total superstar and a person that I've followed very closely. And किसी भी इन्वेस्टमेंट के अंदर जब भी आप कहते हो कि एक्सप्लोसिव ग्रोथ आती है, तो इट्स मोर अ फंक्शन ऑफ हाउ मच प्रोडक्ट आर दे आर सेलिंग. Why can't we expect an industry based company or some other idea to give us a 10-20x in a 2 or 3 years time? उसका सिंपल रीजन ये है कि आज के टाइम में अगर नेस्ले अपना 200 प्रोडक्ट्स का पोर्टफोलियो, जो उसका ग्लोबल पोर्टफोलियो, वो इंडिया में ले भी आता है, तो उसको पहले प्रोडक्शन सेटअप करना पड़ेगा, उसको पहले हायरिंग करना पड़ेगा, उसको सारी चीज के लिए सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट करना पड़ेगा, जो कि अपने आप में 10-20 साल का टास्क हो गया उसके लिए. Now imagine a software built by 25-year-old people or 30-year-old people or 20-year-old people as well, and you build those softwares in a matter of 3 to 4 months, and then you ship that product out to a global economy. आपने एक बारी वेबसाइट बना के ब्लॉकचेन पे डाला कि this is the idea we are chasing, this is the use case that we are building, these are the partnerships that we have, and suddenly you see the user interest growing from 100 users to 10,000 to 1 million. Such is the scale of adoption which we have never seen or never heard ke is possible in a normal equity की company, right? And this is where the multiple जो कहानियां आती हैं कि people have made crores, this is where the crores come from. Investing in protocols which are small but are chasing a decent idea, they have a good shot of disrupting a multi-billion dollar market. And even if they get a 5%, 7% pie of it in 1 to 2 years, you have a 100x, 200x sort of an idea in your hand. Of course, you plant multiple seeds. That's part of the investment journey. And then you basically reap the rewards later. So the idea is कि आपको जितना फास्टर अल्फा यहाँ पे मिलता है वो इसी करके मिलता है बिकॉज द प्रोडक्ट्स शिप फास्टर, द फीडबैक कम्स फास्टर, फाउंडर्स आर ऑन द सेम टेलीग्राम चैनल, दे हैव बिल्ट फॉर द कंपनी. आपको क्वार्टरली रिपोर्ट का वेट नहीं करना पड़ता है. अगर आपके पास आज के टाइम में 5000 यूजर है और कोई प्लेटफॉर्म या उस टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज करते हुए किसी को बग आता है, you have 7 people from the team on hand to basically look into that error instantly and probably solve it in the next couple of hours, right? And this is the power of basically communities and ideas coming together. ये this is not simply कि आपको कोडिंग आती है तो आपने कोडिंग कर दी. It's also having an engaged community. How you respond to that community. जैसे आप अपना ड्यू डिलिजेंस करते वक्त देखते हो कि फाउंडर्स ने कोई घपला तो नहीं किया, फाउंडर्स इंटरैक्ट कैसे करते हैं क्वार्टरली और एनुअल मीटिंग्स में, इनकी रिपोर्ट्स की क्वालिटी क्या है, इनका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड, एथिक्स का रिकॉर्ड कैसा है. सेम वैल्यू फ्रेमवर्क आप जाकर अगर क्रिप्टो में भी जाके लगाते हो तो आधी कंपनीज नहीं समझ आएंगी, लेकिन बाकी आधी में से भी आपको 4-5 अंडर वैल्यूड आइडियाज तो मिल ही जाएंगे, राइट. द आइडिया बीइंग कि अब आपको वो हर क्वार्टरली रिपोर्ट की वेट नहीं करनी है. अब आप सीधा ब्लॉकचेन पे जाके देख सकते हो कि ये पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट के ऊपर कल कितने एक्टिव यूजर आए थे, 3 दिन पहले कितने थे, 1 हफ्ता पहले कितने थे, महीना साल पहले कितने थे. ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स आर पॉसिबल इन रियल टाइम. तो वैल्यू एक्रीशन भी रियल टाइम होगा. अब मेरे को क्वार्टर और 2 क्वार्टर 4 क्वार्टर वेट नहीं करना पड़ेगा. हाँ, टीम अपना रोड मैप देती है कि हम ये जो वर्जन 1 है ये लॉन्च होगा, ये करेगा. लेंडिंग और बोरोइंग के यूज केसेस बन रहे हैं. देयर इज अ ह्यूज एक्सपेरिमेंट दैट इज basically taking place where you are decentralizing the banking economy, which is one of the reasons why the banks are very very scared of giving any support to digital exchanges. The reason being कि उनको पता है कि अगर आज मैं अपने हिसाब से माल्या को लोन दे सकता हूँ गपला करके, एल्गोरिदम माल्या को नहीं जानता है. एल्गोरिदम को पता है कि आप इतने का कोलैटरल दोगे तो इतने का लोन रिलीज हो जाएगा, राइट. एंड प्रॉब्ली वी आर 5 to 7 years away from seeing those protocols in real world action, but you will be surprised to know when I show you the number के already उस ecosystem के ऊपर कितने की borrowing और lending हो रही है, and how it has grown, and how these companies are making real world dollar revenues within 1 to 2 years of them being created. एक पूरा सेक्टर जो 2019 में बना ही नहीं था, वो आज के टाइम में कितना कैपिटल लेकर बैठा हुआ है आप देखोगे और आप हंसोगे कि ये हमारी आंखों के आगे से क्या निकल गया है, right? So before I dive deeper a little bit into that part, I'll also tell you a little bit about कि digital assets को portfolio में होना क्यों चाहिए, right? Best asset class जो रहा है पिछले 10 साल से, अभी सिर्फ $1.5 trillion की market cap पे है. Now understand that this is $1.5 trillion valuation for a asset class which is a global asset class. This is not Indian equities, this is not China, this is not America. American equities alone is more than $75 trillion, right? Gold alone is around $11-12 trillion. So we are very very young in terms of unlocking or basically disrupting those use cases. कि मैं Facebook अगर आज $2 trillion का तो अकेला Facebook और Google और ये सब companies हैं, and these are companies which have treasuries of hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So understand how early you still are after 10 years of this industry being invented, right? Second thing that I would say was कि जैसे 30 years 25 years पहले इंटरनेट was the major thing. उस टाइम पर जब 2000 में बबल आया था, उस बबल के क्रैश होने के बाद भी आज नैस्डैक उस लेवल से 8 to 9 times ऊपर है अगले 20 साल के अंदर. The Nasdaq alone has grown at a rate of 22% over the last 20 years, even after the dot-com bubble crash. My understanding of that whole thing is that every 25 to 30 years, you will get a major, human disruption का एक वो आता है phase, जहां पर आपकी quality of life जो है वो improve होती है by a factor of 10. So internet had done that. उससे पहले personal computers 25 years before that, and then you had the rockets and the internal combustion engines, you had the railways, you had the printing press. ये सारी innovations अब और faster clip पे आती जा रही हैं simply because now we can use or leverage machines to compute all this data for us. So आपको वहाँ उस level पर भी थोड़ा सा सोचना पड़ेगा कि these disruptions are not disruptions के आकर चली गई. ये डिसरप्शंस आपकी डेली लाइफ में आ जाएंगी थोड़ी देर बाद. जैसे आज आप इंटरनेट के बिना लाइफ इमेजिन नहीं कर सकते, 2000 में कोई इंटरनेट को इमेजिन नहीं कर पाता था, या 1995 में कोई इंटरनेट को इमेजिन नहीं कर पाता था, राइट? सो दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू गाइज हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हेन यू आर लुकिंग टू इन्वेस्ट इन अ डिसरप्टिव टेक्नोलॉजी. यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड के कैसे वो यूज केसेस, you as an investor, you have to be an optimist in a sense. राइट, कि मार्केट तो गिरेगी लेकिन इतनी तो नहीं गिरेगी ना कि सब कुछ खा जाएगी, राइट. दीज थिंग्स आर मोर एफिशिएंट, मोर सिक्योर, देन व्हाई नॉट. आज हम टेलीग्राम क्यों नहीं यूज करते, आज हम जो है पोस्ट ऑफिस से क्यों नहीं चिट्ठी कागज भेजते हैं, ईमेल ही क्यों भेजते हैं. ये क्वेश्चन आप तब तो नहीं पूछ रहे होंगे जब आप गूगल जो है वो 2000 के क्रैश के बाद जब लिस्ट हुआ था और 70-80% जो है अमेजोन अगर 4 बारी गिरा है, तो आप ये सवाल तब नहीं पूछते. तो सेम चीज आपको डिजिटल एसेट्स के पोर्टफोलियो में भी वो एक सेंस लाना पड़ेगा कि वी आर इन वेरी अर्ली स्टेजेस ऑफ द डिसरप्शन, एंड द मेजर डिसरप्शन विल हैपन when you will see that real world companies, and as per the latest announcement, we have even Microsoft looking into the metaverse and looking into building a virtual reality universe. तो ये सब चीजें अभी धीरे धीरे आपको आएंगी, लेकिन एग्जीक्यूशन में दिखेंगी आपको 10 साल बाद, 7 साल बाद मेन स्ट्रीम होते हुए. हमारे बच्चे हमसे ज्यादा जल्दी इन चीजों के अंदर अडॉप्टर्स बनेंगे, एंड वील हैव टू थिंक लाइक अ 20-year-old टू मेक that sort of money. And that is important. Regulatory framework काफी improve हो गया है. I also have data points of how institutional and HNI family offices are putting in more and more money, and I have it in the form of a graph which is taken all on chain. आपका blockchain के ऊपर इतना सारा information होता है कि आप खुद से भी चाहो तो fundamental research करके सीख सकते हो. Everything is open source. कोई भी चीज ऐसे नहीं है कि कोई और रिपोर्ट निकाल के देगा तो ही आपको पता चलेगी. ब्लॉकचेन इज द बी ऑल एंड ऑल. वो सब कुछ बता देती है कि किसी एक वॉलेट ने 10 साल से अगर 10 बिटकॉइन लेके रखा हुआ है तो वो ये बता सकती है कि इसमें से लास्ट टाइम बिटकॉइन आया कब था, गया कब था. हाउ मेनी वॉलेट्स आर देयर विच होल्ड मोर देन 1 बिटकॉइन, हाउ मेनी आर देयर विच होल्ड मोर देन 10, 100, 1000, एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज गिव यू अ बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि who is buying and who is selling. If I am a 1000 BTC wallet, it means that I am a multi-billionaire. एंड मेरे को सिर्फ ये पता करना है कि ये बंदा अगर बिलियनर को लग रहा है कि ये मार्केट, वो अगर 1000 में से 500 बिटकॉइन मार्केट में सेल करने के लिए लाएगा और उसके जैसे 10 भी आ गए तो वो मार्केट को तोड़ देंगे. लेकिन ये जो ऑन चेन एनालिसिस कहते हैं जिसको, ये ऑन चेन एनालिसिस, दिस कीप्स आवर फीट टू द ग्राउंड टू हेल्प अस आइडेंटिफाई who actually are speculating in the market and who actually are the real people who are holding these network tokens for the long run, right? So all of this data is available which gives you an edge. Equity के अंदर ये सब चीजें comfort level के साथ, या जिसको स्कटलबट कहते हैं, यहाँ पे जो स्कटलबट है वो सारा आपका पीसी के ऊपर हो जाएगा, अकेले बैठे कहीं नहीं जाने की जरूरत पड़ती है, राइट. एंड इट डिपेंड्स कि आप जितना गुड़ डालोगे उतना मीठा, इट विल बी मोर स्वीटर द मोर यू रिसर्च, राइट. टैक्सेशन के ऊपर रियली क्विकली, last year तक भी the government was very positive that will come up with regulations which are not very out of the far left, and the current budget has given us some clarity regarding कि हम टैक्स लेंगे और इतना टैक्स लेंगे. Now this is something that has, in my view and my conversations with family offices, this has been a very positive development. A lot of people who are not investing, how to take this opportunity as, इसको illegal कहें या legal कहें, that question has been, I think, answered. The government wants to look at it as speculation for now. I'm okay to pay the tax that they've said, because anyways मैं अपना other income के अंदर 30% के अंदर ही book कर रहा था पिछले 3 साल से. So for me, nothing changed really except for the TDS part, which I think will, again, the government will revise its stance whenever in the future. I'm not holding my breath on it, but I think the government finally saying that okay, आप बिना टेंशन इसमें करो ट्रेड और इतना पैसा जरूर दे देना, it more becomes a function of them saying के okay, we are till the time we have more clarity on what to do with it, we are not banning it, right? We have no intention of banning it, and that I've reiterated since the last 2 years, that the government is now basically itna paisa, so much money has come in from the VCs into this space that we can easily conveniently say that they are not fools who are funding companies to the tunes of millions, hundreds, millions of dollars with a risk that the companies might go out of business or might have to take their business out of India, which basically negates the purpose. Everybody wants a chunk of the India market. So I think more positive things will happen in the future. उतना टेंशन लेने का बात नहीं, इनफैक्ट बहुत अच्छा बात हुआ है. द मोर द KYC'd wallets we have, the more white money in the system can get tracked, राइट. द प्रॉब्लम कम्स जब आप खरीदते ही कैश में हो. अगर आप वाइट में ही ट्रांजैक्ट कर रहे हो, देन यू आर ऑल सेट. यू डू नॉट नीड टू वरी. जस्ट invest the way you invest other assets, disclose how you disclose other assets, and you will be totally fine. Nothing to worry there, right? Now, some basic terms that you need to know, some hot terms which are going around in the markets, in the newspapers. NFTs are basically non-fungible tokens. These are, अगर आप देखोगे यहाँ प्रेजेंटेशन के अंदर मैंने लगा भी रखा है, the highest ever NFT sold for $69 million, and it was this particular photo of whatever this pixelated image is. Now the idea is that NFT is an experiment on how, you know, digital assets can hold their value, right? जब आप बिटकॉइन होल्ड करने की बात करते हो तो दैट इज अ नेटवर्क टोकन. बट इफ इट इज अ पिक्चर which is imprinted onto the blockchain, that this particular block equals this picture, now you have the ability to basically transfer the rights of this picture from one user to another. This is the whole concept of NFT, or a non-fungible token. How is it useful? Let's say you buy an NFT to go to a concert, right? A concert of let's say A.R. Rahman. And the particular token says that you can go to 10 concerts in a year, right? You manage to go to 3, you transfer this token to some other gentleman, he can go to another 1, 2 or 3 of his liking, and then you can all share the access to these tokens. Now instead, why is this better? Because A, आपको 10 concerts का sale एक साथ मिल गया for the producer or whoever is organizing the events. Second, आप पहले ये ट्रांसफरेबल टिकट्स के साथ ऐसा नहीं होता था मूवीज में और बाकी जगह में, क्योंकि बहुत सारा पिल्फरेज और बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें अवॉइड नहीं कर पाती थी, ऐसी टेक सपोर्ट नहीं थी कि आप किसी को टिकट इशू करो और वो उसकी कॉपी ना कर पाए. टिकट्स को भी लोग कॉपी करते थे. दैट इशू इज नाउ गॉन विद नॉन फंजिबल टोकन्स. सेकेंडली, यू कैन मेक कलेक्टिबल्स आउट ऑफ इट. अगर आप सचिन तेंदुलकर का बैट अपने शोकेस में रख सकते हो, तो आप अमिताभ बच्चन की शायद एनएफटी भी रखोगे. नाउ इंडिया के लिए अभी वो कॉन्सेप्ट थोड़ा सा दूर हो सकता है, बट कलेक्टिबल्स इज अ ह्यूज मार्केट इन द यूएस एंड द यूरोप. दीज कलेक्टिबल्स कैन रेंज फ्रॉम जापानीज टॉयज to Pokemon cards, to baseball cards, right? Or even shoes, so to speak. तो shoes भी लोग जो हैं नाइकी के स्पेशल एडिशन वाले, वो लोग संभाल के रखते हैं, and they sell worth $25,000, $40,000, $50,000 even. So there is a huge market जो कि legitimize हो जाती है सीधा अगर उसके साथ एक NFT tag हो जाए, right? Because everything is on the blockchain. You can confirm your ownership of an asset. It can happen for artwork, it can happen for properties, it can happen for even collectible assets, right? The second term I would go over is decentralized finance. Now this is the most interesting part of use cases, in my opinion, in the last 2 years. And as you will see in the chart that I've posted right here in the center, you would see the total value logged, right? This is the amount of money which is logged in protocols which are trying to do something around borrowing and lending of assets, and some other use cases which are related to traditional finance, remittances, basically cross-border settlements, lending, borrowing, and then also issuing fixed deposits on the blockchain, right? And if you look at the explosive growth in the value, $105 billion is not something that a retail investor puts in. All of these people over the last 2 years are not only retailers, but also the largest of the hedge funds, the biggest of investors, the multimillionaires, the billionaires, who are experimenting that how do they take out the risk of being exposed to a single government, how to make the verification of your particular so to speak credit rating more global. How can you go to any country and take a loan for as much amount as per your collateralized assets, because now all your collateralized assets can sit on the blockchain, right? And when that use case basically takes over, then your banking cartels are gone, and they'll be gone in a hurry. And what I tell the people that are investing with me is that eventually, and what has happened with me, once I started putting a part of my portfolio towards DeFi, I sold my banking stocks. Not because I hate banking. It's just that it made more sense that over a 5-10 year period, decentralized finance would end up eating the growth or whatever unbanked, debanked people who want a bank account, they would totally eat up their users. Africa didn't see, telephone. This simply migrated to mobile phone because it was convenient for them to directly go to the mobile phone once their economy developed a bit. Same was the case with a Paytm or an Oxygen wallet in African countries. Now, whatever the remaining unbanked population of the world is, if you have high-speed internet and everybody ends up with a mobile device, they will not go to your nearest HDFC branch or your nearest SBI branch. That is my expectation from a 10-year viewpoint, because the way DeFi is evolving, it has evolved a lot over the last 2 years. I believe it is just the start, and it will happen very, very fast. I'm not asking you to sell your banking stocks, but I'm just sharing, something that happened and what was going through my mind. Right? Metaverse is nothing but a virtual reality where all your assets, instead of being physical, will end up being digital. So your kids will log in, come back from school, probably or not even go to school, and just be on their VR headset for 10 hours a day, 5 hours of school, and then they are roaming around in a virtual land where they have sneakers from Nike, which their character is wearing, and they will have a jacket worth $100 that they will buy on the chain just to look cool to their buddies, and then they will probably watch a movie all from their homes, but in a certain virtual room which is set up to display that movie, and all of those guys are interacting together or probably playing games over the internet together. This is the future of how the digital universe will look, right? And these major investments are being made in this space, and the whole ecosystem right now is worth roughly around $7 billion. So all the protocols which have managed to launch a metaverse right now are valued at $7 billion. Facebook alone has committed around $10 billion of capital just to create their own metaverse, right? And the latest report by one of the bank puts the total value of metaverse by 2030 at $1 trillion. अगर मैं बिल्कुल भी दिमाग ना लगाऊं और मैं 5 बिगेस्ट प्रोजेक्ट्स मेटावर्स के उठा के उनको 10 साल के लिए छोड़ दूं, तो उनमें से एक ना एक प्रोटोकॉल ऐसा होगा जो मेरे लिए 50x कर देगा मेरे कैपिटल को. That is one way of looking at it. Another way is, once you experience these things, you'll understand that your kids like them better than you. Maybe we will use them, maybe we won't, but our kids are already using it. Your kids are buying stuff on PUBG without you knowing, right? Or maybe you know, and then you tell them कि ये ही क्यों खरीद रहे हो, right? How does it matter whether your character is wearing a fancy jacket or not, right? But it matters to them. I hope I'm making sense about this part, because this is something that...
Yeah, so I'm glad, Mr. Oberoi. There are a couple of questions coming in.
Sure.
So I was just wondering if we could take the questions.
Sure.
Have you summarized, or can we come to the Q&A, because it's almost 8 o'clock? And
sure. Let me just take a few minutes to just take up the question of, how do I imagine these HNI portfolios, right? This is one of the important slides, and I'll just go over it in 2 minutes, right?
Sure.
Probably people can reach out to me for whatever things I've left out. I'll probably share the PPT with you so that the people can read at their own speed, right?
Sure,
so what we did was, back in 2018, 2019, we did this since the market was in total bear run. We decided that it would be an interesting way to look at the markets. And what we did was that if you look at this chart, this is a chart of 1 year return and 1 year volatility for a traditional new defensive and a new aggressive portfolio. Simple difference being कि ये मैंने एक standard portfolio allocation लिया, equity, real estate, debt और gold का. मैंने उसके अंदर 2% allocate किया digital assets का for a new defensive portfolio, and then instead of 2%, I allocated 7.5% worth digital assets to a portfolio. Okay. And the results that we came up with, and we tried to run for 2 numbers. Okay, what was the return and what was the volatility of that whole total portfolio. So what we observed was that during a 1-year period, when we logged in this research by 2021, middle of 2021, that was when the Bitcoin had dropped for the first time from $64,000 to $30,000. So this was in the midst of a correction. So the 1-year return on a traditional portfolio was 32%. The conservative one did 54, which is a 2% allocation, and the 7.5% allocation portfolio did 114%. The volatility, if you look at this, the 2% allocation was far more defensive in terms of protecting your downside. It was better at protecting your downside, and it outperformed your equity strategy by a good 15, 18 points, right? On the 3-year scale, you would see that the returns were better, the volatility was still better, right? And even in an aggressive portfolio, your outperformance from a standard portfolio was around 4 times, and the volatility was just 2 points higher, right? And over a 5-year time frame, the overall portfolio return was 8%, but since you had 7.5% of crypto in your portfolio, the returns were 34% over that 5-year period. The volatility was, of course, still within the 2% band of that. So the major conclusion that I took away from this was that if you are a person with a keen sense of allocating assets, you should be happy when you find an asset which is not correlated to the current asset classes that you own. Crypto is an asset which is not correlated. It brings down the volatility of your portfolio. When it drops, the equity is almost always doing better. And when it rises, the equity is also doing better or doing worse. There is no certain correlation which has been found. Maybe that correlation increases over time, but for the time being, what I have researched over the last 5 years data, this correlation is holding very well. And even during this downturn, we have seen that these new aggressive portfolios since last year, when this research was done, are still outperforming your normal mix of portfolios. So that is one thing that I will leave you with. And of course, how to shortlist investments. It's a short slide. You guys can look it over. This is some of the on-chain data and some of the profit revenues that these DeFi protocols are making. So there are companies. So DeFi currently is earning on a capital of 105 billion, 400 million of monthly profit revenue. This is hard profit because these are teams of 20-30 people. कितना खर्चा कर लेंगे? 400 million का profit वो protocol कमा रहा है. Hence you will see these 20x, 30x type ideas. From a valuation standpoint, we are very, very sitting on the lower band of the valuation. I feel that यहाँ से भी अगर आप analyze करोगे तो ये logarithmic growth curve का band है. It gives us price estimates on a logarithmic scale. Since Bitcoin is an asset जो logarithmic angle से बढ़ता है, it gives us a fair idea of where the assets are overvalued and undervalued. And right now we are nearing, जितना मैंने यहाँ पर earmark किया है, 27,500 or 28,000 roundabout seems to be the bare bottom. उसके नीचे भी जाता है, but right now you would be in a very comfortable zone if you're looking from a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year time frame. So that has always been my thesis, that never invest for 5-6 months. Always have that 3-year, 5-year time frame. Pi cycle I can probably let go, but also on the fear and greed index, the points where the market is heavily oversold, you will see these chunk of fear dots, right? And these are one of the best buying times in the market from a long-term perspective. So we are seeing similar forms, kind of dots, not that it can't go down from here, but this is definitely one of the zones where I would be very comfortable buying for the long run. Right. This is a slide about how the corporate holdings and ETF holdings are increasing their Bitcoin treasuries. And you can see its correlation with price, how during a market downturn, how these big buyers come in, right? And the data points towards the fact that they are not selling. In fact, they are slightly accumulating over these periods only. So this is something that also I keep track of. That is pretty much. And I've also mentioned my info. Any gaps that are ever left, you guys can directly reach out to me. Once this presentation is over, I'll make sure to send the presentation to the Rotary members so that they can just have a look at their own speed and probably reach out to me directly if they have some other questions. So yeah, I rushed the last 5 minutes, but I'm sorry I took longer than allotted.
No, it was very informative, and we really appreciate that your investment of time. So, Abhayji, I think you have a question. Would you want to come in? You're on mute, Abhayji. Abhayji, you are on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Mr. Oberoi, thank you very much. It was a wonderful insight you gave us. But my argument would be that are not we in a bit too early a stage of bit or cryptocurrency? Because I would compare it with the almost same thing in early 2000, when you gave an example of early 2000 when internet had come, and also the dot-com had started, and I was just in the middle of my career, and I was watching it very, very closely.
Right.
And what people used to say is that, whenever you meet anybody, either here or at that time, I used to travel, half of my time I used to spend in the Silicon Valley. That's the San Francisco, San Jose area. Almost 6 months, I will, every month I would travel from Bombay and spend 15 days there and would be back here. And I used to meet my friends there, and everybody was so gung-ho that, this .com, that's what. And what was happening that time is, that it was not mature, but I used to still fail to understand that how it's becoming a business proposition, because that time it used to only the capturing the eyeball.
Right.
Everyone is ready with the front end, and there was nothing like a back end. The logistics part was absolutely missing, except one company which did, and that was the Amazon. They were the only one. For their books, they had the logistics in place, and somehow they are the one who survived and see where they are. But almost hundreds of companies were closed down the moment the busting took place, because eyeballs were not being converted into the money. Same thing what I argue today is that the blockchain is almost in the same state as what internet is today. But crypto is in the same state as the .com, because what I find is the governance part is the badly missing. Nobody knows if you're putting your money there, who is managing that money?
Right.
Is there anything to govern it, where my money is going? If I have a problem, whom do I approach to? Is there any escalation mechanism? And also the way they have projected or brought it in India, in a very, very, I call it as in a clandestine manner. Because if you go to the tier 2 and 3 cities, all the youths have been targeted. I don't know how much the understanding they have, and they are the one who are being induced to get into it, and slowly the prices are, I call it as the price being manipulated, and they are being shown that, look, you are making money.
Right.
And why the government has done it, my analysis is that since the election is there in UP and a couple of other states, they didn't want to upset the younger crowd. And the way their advertisement, even in Bangalore, I saw sitting here, I saw that there were front page advertisement by the cryptocurrency people. I fail to understand who are these people, who is advertising these things, whom they are trying to address. So, overall, I am very skeptical at this point of time. Let the busting take place, and finally the maturity will come, because you need sovereign guarantee. One needs to know, like, if somebody is spending rupee, at what rate, where it is being converted into the crypto, how it is being manipulated or managed with dollar terms. And those are the various terms, needs to be very, very clear. Then only it will become a future, no second thought it. But I would say that, let the bust take place, let things settle down. And in the second phase, it will emerge just like the way today the internet is being used. That's what is my argument. I might sound skeptical, I might sound conservative.
This is definitely not an argument. In fact, this is a very well put point on how early we are, in fact, into this whole ecosystem, right? My thoughts on this is that once you are talking about, when you are comparing the volatility in crypto to the bubble that happened in the US side of things in 2000, the same things happen again and again, right? We are the same humans with the same emotional capabilities, same attitudes towards investing and speculation, right? what we need to understand is, as an investor, do I have the ability? अब आपने आज बोला कि Amazon was the company that actually was selling products and making money in some form. Maybe they were burning more money, but Amazon even until 2017 उनका जो क्लाउड कंप्यूटिंग बिजनेस है वो उनके ई कॉमर्स के बिजनेस को फंड करता है, राइट? सो व्हेनेवर दे एंटर अ न्यू कंट्री दे वांट टू गेट टू द हाईएस्ट नंबर ऑफ यूजर्स. Amazon जैसा पैसा किसके पास है आज के टाइम में, राइट? दे वन अ बैटल from probably thousands of competitors, right? In blockchain, it's the reverse. On the blockchain, you get a daily data about what earning a protocol is making. So if I'm doing transaction on the blockchain for certain network, so Ethereum और Bitcoin जैसे दो अलग-अलग नेटवर्क है, मैंने Ethereum पे कोई ट्रांजैक्शन किया, मेरे पास फुल डेटा एनालिटिक्स आता है कि डेली कितने यूजर्स ने कितना इथीरियम स्पेंड किया है नेटवर्क के ऊपर, माइनर्स ने कितना कमाया है, इथीरियम के ऊपर कौन कौन से नए ऐसे स्मार्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स और टेक्नोलॉजीज बनी हैं जो कि और यूजर्स ऑनबोर्ड कर रही हैं. सो ये जो पूरा फ्लाईव्हील है ऑफ परफॉर्मिंग, बिल्डिंग एंड देन गेटिंग यूजर्स, एंड देन दोज यूजर्स में से भी देयर विल बी सम हु विल इनोवेट एंड क्रिएट न्यू प्रोडक्ट्स ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट. सो आज अगर आप ब्लॉकचेन को इस हिसाब से देखते हो, कंपेयर करते हो, तो मैं ये बोलूंगा जैसे कि 1994 तक आप ईमेल भी ना जीमेल की तरह नहीं भेजते थे, वो भी आप पहले कोड करते थे, कमांड लिखते थे, उसके बीच में आपका ईमेल मैसेज होता था, फिर आप सेंड करके एंटर करते थे और वो प्रोग्राम पूरा खट 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 रन होता था और फिर आपका ईमेल पहुंचता था. अभी हम अगर उस स्टेज से थोड़ा आगे ही हैं, बट वी आर नॉट एट द रेडी फाइनल प्रोडक्ट वेयर ब्लॉकचेन इज अ पार्ट ऑफ योर नॉर्मल लाइफ, वेयर आपका जो नॉर्मल जीमेल भी अगर अपना ही टोकन चला के आपके नेटवर्क और आपकी ईमेल्स को सिक्योर कर रहा हो. आप एक बात समझिए, आज के टाइम में व्हेनेवर वी आर एक्सेसिंग फेसबुक और इवन व्हाइल वी आर हैविंग जूम मीटिंग, all of this data is going to these corporations, and it has been highly debated what is the actual security of the user by giving all this data to an Amazon or a Google. These are now mega monopolies. They know our ins and outs of behaviors. People across the world, at least the aware people, they have a sense that they are okay without giving this data to Facebook or a Google or an Amazon, right? Some people want convenience. 80% people will want convenience, 20% will prefer security over convenience, because maybe it is the type of work they do, maybe it is the type of life they want to live. They do not want to give this data. आप बैंक के अंदर आपका पैसा आता है, 10 लाख हिट होता है और आपको अगले दिन पर्सनल लोन के भी कॉल्स आते हैं और इन्वेस्टमेंट के भी कॉल्स आते हैं और सारा कुछ होता है. तो आपका डेटा सिक्योर है क्या? कुछ भी सिक्योर नहीं है. It's a myth that your data is secure. Your data, your privacy is already gone. So we are at a stage where we are still identifying what is the best place between the two. We are still in the middle of a very long experiment.
Yeah.
अगर आप इंटरनेट 2000 और आज में कंपेयर करोगे, वी आर एट अ वेरी डिफरेंट प्लेस. आज आप इंटरनेट को क्वेश्चन नहीं करते, हाँ इंटरनेट के ऊपर सिक्योरिटी को क्वेश्चन करते हो. तो ब्लॉकचेन आ गया. अब ब्लॉकचेन आपको सिक्योरिटी देगा, लेकिन आपसे कुछ चीजें मांगेगा भी. क्या आप मेरे टोकन्स होल्ड करो, क्या आप ये रिस्क ले सकते हो? आप नहीं ले रहे, कोई और लोग ले रहे हैं, है ना? But how early you get into a technology is basically your research, your conviction of how important that problem is. And क्या ये इस प्रॉब्लम की तरफ मैं क्या अपना आधा 1, 2, 5, 50% पोर्टफोलियो एलोकेट कर सकता हूँ? नहीं कर सकता हूँ. That is the investor's final decision. What I believe is that whenever you get disruptive technology, and it is not only blockchain, and I'll say this openly, blockchain के अलावा there is AI, there is gene editing and genome mapping के अंदर बहुत फंडिंग जा रही है. These are all disruptive technologies, right? And whether it's crypto or not crypto, if you find a disruptive technology, आप बेशक उसमें एंजल इन्वेस्टर बनिए, बेशक आप उसमें कोई प्राइवेट या पब्लिक कंपनी खरीदिए, आपका 1 से 2% अगर डिसरप्टिव टेक्नोलॉजी में नहीं होगा, तो बाकी इक्विटीज और वो तो एफडी वगैरह वो सब तो है ही है. फिर हम इन्फ्लेशन को फाइट करते रहेंगे और गाड़ी चलती रहेगी. 1 to 2% allocation towards a risk asset for the long term works out in some form or the other, because it will give you sometimes an Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? जैसे आप उस टाइम पर HDFC मिला होगा किसी को, तब तो मैं इतना बच्चा था, मेरा तो डीमैट अकाउंट भी नहीं था. So for me, the journey is a slightly bit different. We are still early. You are absolutely right, and we will reach a stage probably in the next couple of years where things will probably be more easy to digest in terms of why it is needed.
Yeah, so we have to move cautiously. That's all I would say.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Oberoi.
Any other questions? Yes, Pradeep, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time. So wonderful presentation, Mr. Oberoi. So let me get straight to the question. My question is about these two coins. One is Matic or Polygon, and the other one is XRP. I know there's some tussle between XRP and SEC. What's your view on these two coins?
So basically, Matic, I was an investor. I've been tracking these guys, and these are Pune ke hi ladke the apne. And definitely they are one of the richest Indians out there right now. The idea of what they were building was कि Ethereum के ऊपर transactions काफी costly हो गए थे. They needed a layer 2 solution. Layer 1 अगर हम Ethereum को डालते हैं तो इसके ऊपर एक layer 2 बना देते हैं जो कि अगर 10 transactions एक एक करके पैसा देती थी तो हम 10 को batch कर देंगे और एक में ही सस्ते में भेज देंगे. This is a layer 2 solution, right? This is technology being built on top of technology. These were the guys who were attempting this problem since 2018 ka January. And I was tracking this protocol. These guys, they did not have a platform. Once they launched their platform, right? And once they started building things on that platform, transactions started moving, transaction count started moving. I could see there was something real behind it, right? So I invested, I made a small 20x type trade on it in a matter of 6-7 months because the highest user adoption happens when everybody gets to know that it works, right? And जब आप 1000 यूजर से मिलियन यूजर पे जा रहे हो तो इट्स इजी, मिलियन से बिलियन जाना डिफिकल्ट है. बट आप अगर 10,000 यूजर से मिलियन वाला गैप अगर अटैक करते हो तो probably you will find a hit like Matic, right? On the other hand, XRP is a totally different beast, right? Matic, when they released their tokens, they released it to the common public. Most of it was held by the token holders and a few VCs which had supported the early days of the project. The case with Ripple was that since 2013, they had this narrative and they raised huge amounts of sums that they will solve cross-border remittance. But their technology was not open source. You could not verify what was actually happening inside the company. It was structured as a company, not as a foundation. Like Matic is a foundation, right? The tokens or the profits which come back to the Matic blockchain, they go to the foundation, which gives new programmers funds to make more things about on the Matic platform. And this creates a whole flywheel where you're आपने 50 प्रोग्रामर्स को पैसा दिया, उसमें से कोई एक ऐसा सॉफ्टवेयर बन जाएगा जो कि आपके लिए अगले 10 मिलियन यूजर्स ऑनबोर्ड कर सकता है, राइट? सो all of this investment is important. With Ripple, what we saw was that a large amount of Ripple was controlled in, even till recently, more than 60 to 70% of Ripple is held by the founder. That is a huge risk, right? Moreover, on the blockchain, we can see that Ripple does actual transactions of barely a few dollars on their blockchain in real time. So fundamentally, अगर मैं पहले 2 points पर ही जाऊं और बाकी टेक को मैं साइड भी छोड़ दूं, Ripple, I have never invested $1 in, but Matic, I have invested, I have profited, I will re-enter at some point in the future also. So I can actually compare these two protocols and probably say कि एक तो है कि आपने कम्युनिटी को बोल दी बहुत सारी चीजें और कम्युनिटी आपकी बात मान भी सकती है, नहीं भी मान सकती है. एज एन एनालिस्ट, माय जॉब इज, मेरा रिस्क एपेटाइट है क्या इस फाउंडर की बात सुनने का, ये जो कह रहा है डिलीवर कर पाएगा. रिपल के साथ इट वाज अ स्ट्रेट नो फ्रॉम 2017. जब मैंने सीखा था तब से भी मैंने नहीं लगाया था. जब वो 300 रुपए गया था तब भी नहीं लगाया था. वापस 30 आया तो भी नहीं लगाया मैंने. मैटिच के साथ once I saw the network adoption gain traction, that was my cue to enter that ecosystem, play with it a bit, understand if it was working faster than Ethereum, and then the data supported the findings, and then I went in. So it becomes important कि आप किस प्रोटोकॉल में किस रीजन की वजह से इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो. इज इट जस्ट कि इलॉन मस्क ने ट्वीट किया या आपने खुद से कुछ रिसर्च किया है? बिकॉज an idea like Matic was executed by 20 something guys in India, right? And they had full support of Ethereum's co-founder. उसने बोला करो. There are multiple layer 2 solutions. Matic has become one of the biggest ones only in India, right? During COVID, these guys donated $200 million of their own net worth, personal net worth, and asked the government to give them a plan how this money will be deployed during COVID, right? Ethereum's co-founder matched them. He alone donated 600. So we have $1.2 billion sitting in a smart contract, waiting for government कि हमसे पैसे ले लो, आपको जो करना है इस चीज का करो. and how much did we feel ke corporate houses ne kiya hai? If you compare that number, it's nothing burgers. So we have people who are building, willing to give back, build more stuff. This is a community which wants to grow with the people, right? The blockchain doesn't work without you or me trusting the blockchain in the first place. That is how I basically rate founders. How are they actually growing their whole community? How respectful are they of the community? That also becomes a part of me analyzing these investments. Yeah.
Sure. Any other questions in the hall? So, Mr. Oberoi, probably you can share the PPT with me, and I'll forward it in the Rotary Junction group. And I'm glad we are here this evening, and I'm sure all our members would have found it really useful. So, may I now invite Anne Shraddha Agarwal to deliver the vote of thanks. Shraddha ji.
President, thank you, President. A very good evening to all the esteemed dignitaries present here. I am highly delighted to present vote of thanks on behalf of the entire Rotary Bangalore Junction. We are very much pleased, and it is a great pleasure having you, sir, over here. And thank you so much for sharing your valuable insight in the world of cryptocurrency. We are definitely enlightened with your words. Thank you once again, and have a great evening ahead. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And Mr. Oberoi, with your permission, this particular meeting has been recorded. So I hope we can share it with our members for the benefit of our members who could not join us today. So I hope it's okay with you.
Yes, of course, of course. No problem from my end.
Thank you so much. So we're glad we had a very interesting meeting, and more importantly, on the current affairs and cryptos, which has been something very mysterious, I should say. And hopefully the mystery unfolds with a lot of good things, and the industry growing, and people actually making a reasonable amount of money out of the investment they make.
Sure. We'll be happy to guide anyone on the journey. So all the best to everyone, and I hope they do not get turned off after this session, and of course give it a deep, thorough look as the great investors you all are. And thank you very much for the opportunity, Ajay sir, and the Rotary members. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you.
Our pleasure. Thank you. So I now adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned. I request all the members to please raise for the national anthem.
Just 1 second. I'm just starting it up.
Yeah.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मन जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Jai Hind. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please follow all necessary COVID protocols. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Let's catch up very soon once again. Good night.
Good night, everybody.